Okay, magic makers. Do you ever start those days where it is just so many moving parts in your day? Well, it's not even 9:30 and I feel like I have so many moving parts in my day. But I wanted to make sure I got this recording done because Derek, my producer, is like, Kim, move your rump shaker. He's a little bit nicer than that, but that's the implied email that I got. So here we are. We're in our second week of January, and many of you woke up on January 1st and you told yourself, these are the things I'm going to accomplish. And, maybe you had one thing, maybe you had 100 things. I don't know. And if you're a lady over 40, we were raised in the go big or go home. If you're a woman who's listening to me, you are an A plus plus with a side of A plus plus person. You want it, you want your results and you want them right freaking now. And I feel you, right? Because I'm the same way. And this summer, I did a little journey of self-discovery and I learned some really hard lessons that I am stubborn as fuck. Um, I don't want to change. Enjoy I enjoy what I was doing. Like what I was doing wasn't not healthy, wasn't, swinging by and eating Big Macs and ice cream sundaes every single day, but something had to change. And if you're right now struggling because you're going back to a diet that you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and it's not working, I want you to know that it's not you. Your body has changed. And from the time you're 35 years old, no one told us this. And this is something that I know I had to learn the hard way. And maybe you are in the same boat that you're learning this the hard way, that menopause happens, it starts to happen around 35, right? It's that slow creep to what we actually know as menopause. And so, I've shared multiple episodes about menopause, but menopause happens in a day. But it is that prior 10 years that really just like punches us right in the gut. And, the results that you get are going to be slower. I remember I was, listening to another coach talk, and she was like, oh, if you only have more protein, you'll be losing 2 to 3 pounds a week. And I'm going to be honest with you, for many women over 40, myself included, if you have been on umpteen diets, that ship has left the station. After your third or fourth diet, your body is like, girlfriend, I know exactly what you're doing, and I ain't going to give it to you no more. That's just not how it's going to happen. And I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade. What I'm trying to say is, I want you to get real so that you aren't frustrated. Because if you feel like you're frustrated right now because you're doing all the things, and you're not getting what you want, it's not you. It could be your approach. And so here's where a coach helps you zoom out. Trust me, a lot of the women who I work with, they know how to diet. They could like win the dieting Olympics, like probably score gold in the dieting Olympics. However, you don't have perspective when you talk about yourself. It's really easy for you to be like, I've got the protein, I've got the carbs, I'm going vegan, I'm keto, I'm this, I'm this, and this. But when it comes to the perspective of, is it freaking working for your body? Is it working for your life? Are you measuring it? How are you stacking up against the goals? How can you bob? How can you weave? That's what a coach does. And for me as a coach, we're probably going to go a lot slower than you want to go. However, my goal is to teach you how to stop dieting so that you no longer have to be out searching, Googling, clicking, scrolling to find said diet. Is that, you know what? I know how to evolve my diet. I know how to regress my diet. I know how to progress my diet so that I am no longer using the word diet as I'm following said diet. I'm using the word diet as it is in the damn dictionary. This is what I eat. I am not depriving myself. I am not feeling like I need to do all the things because you can't do all the things. It's as a overachiever, procrastinist recovery, it's not possible. And the sooner we start beating ourselves up, the sooner we are going to achieve so much more, friends, so much more. Um, a woman I follow on Instagram, and she kind of helped me inspire this podcast today. She wrote, No one will coach you more than the voice in your head. And how many of you have that voice in your head that says, you must do more, you must go harder, you must double down, you suck, you're not working hard enough. Like, trust me, the voice in my head is an inner gang member that I have to just be like, girl, pause for a hot second before I go like head first into something that isn't going to be sustainable. Many of us know how to diet, but we don't know how to live, right? Especially coming out of the holiday season. So many people are like, oh, I can't resist. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I'm like, you don't know how to live, right? There is a blend. There is a happy balance between getting in the fun foods in your life and living a healthy life without ever uttering the words, oh, this is so shameful. Oh, I shouldn't be eating this. Like, those are words that I don't want to ever hear come out of your mouth anymore, right? Have the cookie. It's okay to have the damn cookie, because trust me, when you deny yourself the cookie, you're going to lose your ever loving mind when you have those cookies. Trust me, after years and years of always telling myself, I'm being good, I can't have, telling the chef how to cook my food, trust me, it always came back and punched me in the face about 50 times. And I finally have learned my lesson. For the love of God, I finally have learned my lesson. So many of you, yeah, you know how to diet. You know how to diet. Like I said, you could be in the damn Olympics. And maybe some of you will take down this information. You'll write it all down. You're like, yeah, I got this. But where's your accountability? Who is going to say, okay, Sharon, you wrote all this shit down, but are you actually doing it? Are you implementing it each and every day? Or are you trying to sprint to check off all the boxes, but you're so damn exhausted because you can't check off all the damn boxes, right? So where do you stand? Where's the support when you hit that wall? Where's the support to tell you, like, hey, you might be taking on too much. We might need to scale something back. And just because you scale something back doesn't mean you're failing. All right. So many of us have this like fatal flaw of like, I'm failing. I'm failing. No, you're not failing. You're just found a way that's just not working for you. So many said diets go out there and they're like, here's the list, do or die. And I see it all the time, in Facebook groups that I'm in. People are like, well, I'm following all the rules, right? This isn't a driver's test. Dieting is not a driver's test that if you don't, make the perfect K turn, you are going to fail. You have to learn how to find a way to make food and exercise work for you, work for your life. And I always say this, and I'm probably going to do another podcast on it, but if we start to think about our life in seasons, okay? So let's just say winter, just like seasons outside, winter, spring, fall, so forth. Every 3-ish months, the seasons roughly change. Let's not even talk about climate change, but let's just say, back in the day. And so we all have different seasons. So I like to really break my year into 90 days. And because we can see, here we are January, but I can see where I'm going to be in March. And I'm like, what's coming up for me January, February, March? Is it a time that I can really like focus in on my nutrition? Or is it a time that life's just a little cuckoo and it's not possible and I can scale it back or I can accelerate depending on where I am in my stage of life? And so when it comes to, living our best life in our 40s, the all or nothing mindset, boom, it has to go. It just has to go. And so if we want to change our body in our 40s, there has to be a plan. There's no more winging it. There's no more just flying by the seat of our pants. Trust me, I am a captain winger right here. It doesn't happen. I see it all the time. I have a client who is like so hard, wants to be veganish, so hard. And one week she was like sitting there and all she had was just beans all week. And I was like, hey, I'm like, what's up with having the beans all week? And she's like, well, they're healthy. That's not what I was saying. I was saying, even if she was having chicken every single day for every meal, I'm like, can we add a little bit more variety in there so that we can have more micronutrients included in our meal? And she's like, oh, you're right, Kim. I just didn't plan. Especially if you are trying to be veganish or if you are new to adding more protein into your nutrition, there has to be a plan. And the plan, I have a client, Liza, who is just ridiculously methodical about her plan. But you don't have to be her. But you don't have to be a Liza, but you don't have to be a Lucy. And so here's find that happy balance. And so for many people, and I'm going to give you some tips here, and I'm going to give you tips on how to start to incorporate that. But before I go there, I want to say that yes, we have to have a plan, but the plan has to have four pieces. It has to be realistic for you, right? So it's like we're going to talk about things that, as someone who's over 40, really making sure these are part of the plan so that we can really start to think about our hormones. We don't think about our hormones, and that is what's driving the show for you from 35 forward, right? Perimenopause is starting to play, a festival of hormones are just starting to just go on its own merry coaster ride, and merry-go-round, merry-go-round, and we have to account for that. It's not that what's happening. Like if I was 25, I could just tell you exactly what to do and the weight would probably come off. But for many of you, it's hard to know. Like it's hard to know. I've had clients who've had zero symptoms of menopause and just that happened to be like, boom, that, one day, 12 months in a day, didn't have a period, boom, menopause, and they sailed through. Others, simple things like stubborn weight loss, right? That's one of the big things that many people come to me with, stubborn weight loss, but then they maybe had a hot flash, or maybe they couldn't sleep, or, maybe they had joint issues, right? But that's about it. Where other people like brain fog, they just can't think. Like, I've had women who are like, Kim, I've literally contemplated quitting my job because I just can't freaking think. I'm exhausted all the time. So it's like, you can go from the crippling menopausal symptoms to, like I said, sliding through without a plan in the world, without a symptom in the world. And so we first have to say to ourselves, right, what is this plan realistic? Because what I'm thinking about, is this realistic for my life? I'm excited about it. Can I wake up every day for, let's say even 90 days, 6 months, 12 months? Can I wake up every day excited to do this? Can I make a plan for it in my life? Right. So if it's, when I was vegan I was vegan for about a year. That took a lot of freaking planning. I had to cook a lot. And if you're someone who doesn't like to cook, if someone who doesn't like to go to the grocery store, that's going to be a struggle. All right. So I had to be like, like this is, it was a struggle for me. I knew it wasn't going to be a way of life for me. I knew it was just a path to help me clear up some excess hormonal issues. But I knew I knew I could not keep this up. It was not a sustainable thing for me. And so that, I had to make a plan every single week. I knew that I had to make sure that there were groceries in my house so that I had food. I had to, and that's what you have to decide. Like, can we make this plan, for the workouts, for food, for whatever? Can you make a plan for it in your life? And then ultimately, if my plan doesn't work, it's really not going to be sustainable for me. So those are the four questions I consistently ask. And I did a whole podcast about this probably a couple of years ago, and I will continue. I'll post this in goodness, I will post this in the show notes. All right. So here's the thing. Changing your body requires consistency and flexibility. So what are the actions, the habits that I can start to form that I can do on a consistent basis? But I also know that I have to build in some flexibility so that rigid, like I must follow this plan. I can't, there's no like wiggle room, right? I'm a big 80-20 person, and that you need to factor in times to have ice cream with your kids, have cake on your birthday, have a date night with your sweetie. Those have to be factored in because you want to live your damn life. You don't want to be that person who's like, I got my gallon of water and I got my bag of carrots and life is going to be good. Like that fucking sucks. That life sucks. And if you're listening and you're like, oh my God, Kim, yeah, you're absolutely right. That life sucks. Like keep listening. But if you're also on the other spectrum where like every day is like, oh, I'm going to have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and you're not adding it up, that's going to catch up with you again. So there's this big wide swath of like, people can always eat to like being stuffed. We can always find things that make us feel guilty, but how do we find that like happy medium? So I always think of things as on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being like strict, 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 I can't have. 10 being like, fuck it, it's a party. How do we find that 5 to 7, right? Living in that 5 to 7 zone where like we can pull it back if we need, or we can bump it up for holidays, birthdays, special occasions, so forth. So honor the menopause, like honor the perimenopausal stage that you are in, because we need to factor in that once you hit 35, that's the decade we start losing muscle mass, right? So that muscle mass, 3 to 5% every decade we are losing. So we're fighting that natural aging process here. And so we want to really make sure that we are honoring that. And to honor that, we have to change our eating habits, because if I am still doing kind of the same-ish workouts without adding more weight to my whatever strength training program that I'm following, and I see it all the time. And it's funny, every beginning of the month, I still teach group fitness classes. So every beginning of the month, I'm like, okay, guys, it's the beginning of the month. Don't like reach for something heavier. Even if you can only do half the amount of reps that we're doing, reach for something heavier. Like challenge yourself. If I'm flying through the weights, challenge yourself. And that's going to be paramount for helping fighting that decreasing muscle mass that is coming for you. Because so many people, because it's 3 to 5%, and if you are someone who's pretty much been consistent with lifting, you're not really going to see it too much in your 40s and your 50s. Where you're going to see it is in your 60s, like your mid to late 60s. If you haven't been keeping up, you're going to be like, why is this a little more flabbier than it was? Why am I struggling to lift heavier? Where we start now, let's start packing in that muscle into like a muscle savings account, if you will, so that we're not like, at the 60 in their 60s being like, oh damn, what happened here? How did this back up? Because many people look at it and they say it's fat. Muscle does not turn to fat. I'm going to say this 500 times. Muscle does not turn to fat. It is what you are seeing is muscle loss. It is showing that muscle loss tone. For all of these people, I want to tone up. What you're seeing is an anti-toned muscle, an untoned muscle is what you are seeing. But you're not alone. Like, I'm setting the stage here so that you could be like, oh, okay, wow, this is what happens when I turn 40. Yeah, like it's not this like all of a sudden your body gave you the finger, because trust me, that's how I felt. But here's how we're going to really, really, really focus on that. And I'm going to say it in a way that's going to really help you figure out, how do I, work on adding this in without going into that all or nothing space, right? That's the first place I want us to go. So the big thing here is that let's add in more movement outside of our workout, right? This is acts of daily living. And, I noticed this huge change is that I had a client, Sharon. Sharon was a group fitness instructor, and she was teaching like 20 classes a week. Then she switched out of teaching group fitness and she went to a corporate job, and she sat for a living. And over the course of a year and a half, she's like, Kim, I'm packing on the weight. Like, what is going on? What is going on? And I was like, okay, let's start to unpack. Like, her food was good, this, and then I realized she wasn't moving as much, right? As a group fitness instructor, I realized this myself during COVID. I was doing like 25,000 steps without even thinking about it a day. It just was what I was. And then I stopped. I just, we were told to sit our asses down. And then I was walking maybe 5,000 steps a day. So just that little small change can add up over time. So I want you to look at, like, I'm not asking you to do 20,000 steps a day. I'm saying, look at what you're doing right now. And if you're like, just in a week, just say, how many steps am I doing? Just making this number up. If you're doing 5,000 steps, great, awesome. Could I add 1,000 steps? Just 1,000 steps. Could I just start with 1,000 steps? And, it could be something as simple as adding 15 minutes walking around the block, right? And I know I live in New England, and that's one of my challenges this year, is that I want to add in a few more steps, because I'm not teaching as much. I'm doing a little bit more online stuff now. So I'm like, can I add in 15 minutes of movement outside of my workout? And it's just literally going around the block, right? It's going to be really, really simple. So can you do that? So that is, and I'm talking making it so simple, so sustainable, that over time it's going to add up. And one of the big things about when we add these walks, it's good for stress reduction, right? Because you're just walking, right? I'm not like trying to like, power walk. I'm just outside walking and, plug in your headphones, listen to music, or just be aware of nature in your surroundings. The second thing I'm doing, thing I'm doing here is be more consistent with my vegetables. And so one of the biggest reasons why you want to be more consistent with your vegetables is that one, you got the very great micronutrients, right? Fibers, antioxidants, and so forth, immune system, improved digestion. But the biggest thing is for women over 40 is the fiber. The fiber content here, one, helps us to remove toxins, right? We poop it out. Two, it helps us to pull out the cholesterol. And it just as a natural aging, as we naturally age, our cholesterol rises. And it's not because you're eating, I mean, unless you're eating beef like 7 days a week. It's not because you're eating beef. It's not because you're eating eggs. There's plenty of studies out there that are showing that the cholesterol doesn't rise because of food that you're eating. So it's just our most of our hormones are made from cholesterol because our hormones are getting a little buck wild. That's why a lot of times we see the cholesterol, our cholesterol rising. So one of the big ways to help fight that is having more fiber. So it's like can we add in about 25 to 35 grams of fiber into our food and getting that through food. Some people are like, I take a gummy. No, like, can we at least aim for like 20 to 25 through food? And that comes from fibrous vegetables like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower. And it's sprinkling in here and there. I'm drinking a protein shake here while I record this podcast. And I put in a handful of cauliflower every single time. Handful of cauliflower, ground meat. So whenever I'm making like a ground meat something or another, I sprinkle in, there's the grocery store that I go to, they have like riced broccoli, riced broccoli, riced cauliflower, riced carrots, and it's like a mixture. I throw that into whatever ground meats I'm taking. I make soup. I put in some, riced vegetables into soup just so that I'm finding ways to add in more fiber into my nutrition. So it's like these little small doses of vegetables that don't taste like it, pretty much don't taste like anything. And now I know for many of you, this is one that I know that if you change this one thing, you would be surprised. Set a bedtime. Set a bedtime. And think about trying to get 7 to like 9 hours of uninterrupted sleep. And to do that, we have to I want you to think about what you did for your kids to get them to sleep, right? To get your kids to sleep, you literally created a routine for them. It was tubby time, and 2 or 3 stories and snuggles, and then lights out. Can you create that for yourself? And it like we're such a go, 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 go people. Can I find a way to like shift it into lower gear? And my husband makes fun of me all the time because I have a bedtime routine. And do you have one? So many people are like, oh, I just pass out on the couch watching TV. Like, I want you to just kind of like back it out and be like, do I have to pass out on the couch? What's some things that I could do that I find relaxing? One of the things that and I can give you ideas, but I don't want you to try to recreate mine. Mine works for me because I kissed a lot of frogs, but I want you to start thinking about what are things that you find relaxing. You know, I've started reading fiction again, and I love reading. So it's like for me, it's like I read for 10 or 20 minutes before I go to bed, and I physically read on a book. I physically read in a book. But like, could you do that? Could it be meditation, breath work before bed? I just got a sauna blanket, and I've started adding 20 minutes of being in a sauna blanket before I go to bed. Like, what are some of the things that you can do that just naturally make you unwind, and it's not passing out in front of the TV? And if you're someone who's passing out in front of the TV, maybe you could like set that bedtime. I literally set a timer for everything, or I'd be late all the damn time. And so set a timer and say, maybe if you're just passing out, set a timer at 11 o'clock 10 o'clock, whatever it is, this is when I'm going to go to bed. And you're going to go upstairs, brush your teeth, wash your face. And what could you do that will make you just feel relaxed? Coloring, I have a client who needlepoints, like what's something that can be relaxing that's not zoning out in front of the TV? Could you listen to an audiobook? Whatever it is, like think about some things that just you find actually relaxing. Maybe it's a bubble bath, maybe it's taking a hot shower, whatever it is. What can you do to kind of set that like bedtime and like make it a priority? Because trust me, when you get a good night's sleep, oh, hot damn, it's such a game changer. Here's where this one, it might ruffle a little feathers, is that adjusting your workout routine. So many women, I see it all the time. I must go hard. I'm working out 6-7 days a week, hard, hard, hard. I'm like, leaving the gym as a puddle. I'm someone who works out at 5 a.m., but I don't get a good night's sleep. But I'm like, but I'm a 5 a.m.er, so I gotta go. All right. So here's where we have to look at our workout and just say, yeah, 2 snaps up in a tic tac that you have a workout routine, but is that routine working? Okay. Is it working? So I'm going to first talk to the people who are currently working out, and then we'll talk about the people who are like kind of working out. So for those of you who are currently have a workout routine, great, awesome, rock on with you by yourself. However, now that we're 40, perimenopause has to be factored in. Hormones have to be factored in. You naturally, like we used to release progesterone like champs. Progesterone and estrogen would come out. Our body would be like, hey, this is good. Time to have a baby. Let's go through the cycle. Now it's hit or miss. Sometimes estrogen goes, sometimes progesterone goes, sometimes they both go at the same time like it's supposed to happen, and sometimes it's just like whoop. So we don't know this, and I know right now there's a company out there saying that you can test for menopause. You can't. I'm sorry, you can't. Our hormones are just in too much flux during this time of our lives. So because progesterone isn't going to be produced as consistently as it did in our 30s, you have to account for that. Progesterone buffers cortisol. Cortisol is, and everyone knows this, about 5 million commercials talk about cortisol. So cortisol is what comes out as a way to help us do fight or flight. And progesterone helps us buffer that, right? And so if our progesterone isn't coming out as much, cortisol is going to naturally be higher. Cortisol raises when we are working out. It's just a byproduct of working out. But so if I'm like constantly pressing on that hard, hard, hard button, and I don't have progesterone to temper it, cortisol is just going to always remain a little bit higher. Cortisol also helps us to retain weight because it's looking for a fast energy source, thinking that we are in danger. Even though we're exercising, our body has the part of our brain that controls that thinks that we are still living in the caves. Maybe in 100 years, it'll evolve and maybe realize like we are no longer living in the cave. I don't know. Maybe someone will figure out how to make that switch happen. But till that happens right now, so if we keep pressing on the hit, I challenge you to pull it back. If I'm doing hit for 30, 40 minutes, I'm not really doing hit. I'm doing long, hard cardio is what I'm doing. Hit is something that is 15 minutes. Like, so I want you to think about it as like a sprint. Think about sprinters. Sprinters like run for like 100 yards, 200 yards, and they're done. They're so gassed that they can't even think about taking another step. That's hit. So for those of you who are doing 40 minutes of hit, you're not doing hit. You're doing long, hard cardio. Sorry, not sorry. So for women over 40, the 2 things that I'd love to see for your cardio, if you will, 15-minute bursts, like boom, 15 minutes, hit it, 15 minutes, hit it, 2 to 3 times a week, right? 2 to 3 times a week. That's what we're doing. And then adding in strength training, that we're doing lifting heavy weights. Heavy is relative, so that whatever you're doing, the last 2 to 3 reps feel challenging, but you have that good form, right? That good form versus I'm lifting and you're sprinting through all the exercises, right? If we're doing 10 reps, you can bang out 10 reps in like 2 seconds. Challenge yourself that the last 2 to 3 reps feel challenging, but doable. And we're adding in some type of plyometric move. And now, are we doing burpees? I hate burpees. Let's just be honest. But I'm doing squat jumps. I'm, doing squat jumps. I'm doing jumping jacks, jumping rope. So that again, it's really helping me to keep my reactive skills going, but it's also helping me put a little bit more stress on my bones. And women over 40, as we start to work through there, because estrogen is not produced in the same levels, estrogen is what really helps drive our bone health. And that's why strength training is such a big thing. Plyometrics is such a big thing because we want to make sure we have nice, strong bones. Because, down the line in our 70s and our 80s, it's that, if we break some type of bone, we lose our mobility. And it just, for a lot of people, it's just like a downhill slide. And I know that's sad and morbid, but I really want us to say, like, I can prevent those things if I start right now getting my shit together. So here's we want to focus on building that nice, long, lean muscle. And it's not starting by lifting a Buick. It's not starting by going to a CrossFit class. If you are going to, that Orange Theory or F45 classes, stay there if you love it. However, build in rest days, 2 to 3 rest days every single week. Lift is what the focus is. Lift versus how hard can I go on all of the pieces of cardio. And I can't emphasize the rest day. And if you're someone who is that dawn patrol person, you having a bedtime is a non-freaking negotiable. You need to get your ass to bed. If you're working out at 5 a.m. and you need to count back 7 hours from getting up at 5 a.m. And if you are not able to get a good night's sleep, you need to reevaluate that 5 a.m. Now I know some people are like, that's the only time I can work out. I got kids. Get a bedtime. Like, that's it. Like, have a bedtime. I challenge you to have a bedtime. And then I have people who are like, oh, I don't like to work out on the weekends. And it's like, well, have a bedtime, right? You're making it harder than it has to be. And I know people are going to come at me about that, but I'm like, are you really if I argue for my limitations, I will keep them. And I learned that the hard way this year. Like, I had a lot of limitations that I didn't realize I had, but I want you to take a step back. Take a step back. Like, how much of an effective workout are you getting if you are dead dog tired all the damn time? Is it just to have that badge on your shoulder, or do you want an effective workout that is literally going to change you? Because I want you to take a picture on the beginning of month 1, take a picture in the beginning of month 2, and take a picture in the beginning of month 3. If there is no changes in your body and you just keep doing the same thing you're doing, insanity. And, hard facts, lessons have to be learned, or guess what? You're always going to be like, why come? How come? I'm going to eat less. I'm going to just go harder at the gym. Well, come on, folks. Sometimes it's the simple things. 2 things that if most women paid attention to, stress and sleep, damn, many things would change for them. But so many of us are like, this is just how my life is. I'm supposed to be stressed to the max. I should always be exhausted. Think about it. How many times have you went up to a friend and you're like, hey, Susie, how's it going? Oh, busy. Exhausted. Stress. How many people like, oh, I got such a good night's sleep last night. Stress? What the hell is that? Busy. Oof, I have boundaries. I'll say no. How many people say that to you? Nobody. Nobody, nobody, nobody. So maybe you're that girl who'll be like, you're like, got a good night's sleep last night. Got a sleep score of 90. How you doing? My readiness score was ready to go. Right? How many of you can say that versus many people are like, oh, I'm so exhausted, but I'm here. I made it. There's no fucking badge. No one's giving you a Mercedes that you did a tired workout. Because if they give you a Mercedes for doing a tired workout, my ass would be at the gym at 5 a.m. But there's no badge. There's no Girl Scout merit badge for this shit. So honor your body, friends. Honor your body. Going to the gym 7 days a week. Yeah, that ship sailed back when you were 21. Doubles, that ship sailed. Quality workout is where we are headed. All right, I think I've beaten my dead horse. So here's where we consistency, right? The big thing that I'm working with on my clients is, what can you do to be consistent? And consistency is different for everybody else. And I know that, you see this laundry list of like, here are the 20 things I have to do. What can you be consistent with? Take a look at that 20 list. What can you be consistent with? Right? Because it's like the biggest thing that I can tell anyone is that there has to be a plan. I just can't tell you how hard it is to be a plan, because especially for your food too. Um, because some people are like, oh my God, Kim, the day got away from me. The day will always get away from you. It will always get away from you without a plan. And one of the biggest things that I'm working on this year is adding two. I've had a non-negotiables for probably the past 10 years. And now I'm adding on to that. And so I'm making sure I get at least 160 grams of protein. And I'm making sure that I get 4 cups of vegetables every single day into my nutrition. And so to do that, I sit down every Sunday and I write out, what the hell am I eating? Right? This is what I'm eating. And it helps me, one, to go to the grocery store, make sure I have stuff in my house. Like, I'm not that person who goes to the grocery store every day. I can't. Like, I can't. So once a week I sit down, like, this is what I'm having. Second thing I do is that the night before, I put in what I'm eating the next day. And I roughly eat the same pattern most of the time. Breakfast, I have a protein shake, and I pretty much put the same shit in it every single week, or every single day. Change around a couple of things. Lunch, I have a big ass salad every single day. Every single day, I have a big ass salad. And every week I might shift a few things in it, but 90% of the time, it's the same shit. For depending if I'm working, I will throw in like a protein shake or a protein bar. Then I have dinner. Most dinners, I have a protein and a veg. Like, that's the cadence of my meals. That's what I typically have. From time to time. If I get a little bit, if I have like a heavier lift, I'll throw in an extra yogurt or some extra cottage cheese with some fruit. But that's pretty much the bulk of my meals. And I think most of you, if you're anything like my clients, you fall into the same rhythm. When I pull up a check-in from a client, and I see Mary, I'm like, okay, this is kind of what Mary normally eats. And I don't know, I just have this weird memory about people's food. And I'll be like, okay, Mary usually has like this egg bake that she makes, or she'll have an oatmeal. And then she'll have some chicken sausage and some brown rice and some spinach. And then she'll have some sweet potato and some chicken and some broccoli, right? And then that's pretty much what Mary will eat. From time to time, she'll mix up and have in some blueberries, or she'll throw in a Greek yogurt here or there. But that's pretty much what Mary eats. So if we think about, many of us eat that way, but it's like really sitting down and training ourselves to be like, what are we having tomorrow? And it could even be on a damn piece of paper. Like, it doesn't have to be in an app, like whatever floats your boat. And if you're like, Kim, tracking my food makes me crazy. Great, fine. I'm not trying to make you crazy. Then literally, like, what are you trying to change? So I'm working on changing my body composition. So for me, it's protein and veg is where my mind is. So even if I just put in my protein, right? Just write down, what are the things for protein that I'm going to eat? Boom. That's then I'm good, right? Just write down the protein, and then everything else will fall into place. Um, if I'm trying to make sure I get in more vegetables, we're just writing down the vegetables I'm going to have the next day and making sure it gets in place. Making sure I have vegetables in the house, right? Those are the things that are going to give us those consistency. Those are the tips, the habits that are going to really help us drive this home. And instead of us kind of trying to write it all down, the last piece I gave you is the gold. Planning is the gold. Can I make a plan? What does my plan look like? And if you're struggling with making a plan, do me a favor, raise your hand. I want to help you. Like, you are not alone if you can't make a plan, and that's okay. So one of the ways I can help you create a plan is I've created this program called Lifestyle 66. And it's 66 days of you just kind of trying to really build on great, simple habits, getting back to the basics, learning what that means for you, and just kind of picking and checking off for 66 days. And I promise you, after 66 days, you'll look back, you'll be like, damn, look at me go. I got this. I'm going to be an absolute rock star because I know that you can be an absolute rock star. But some of us over 40, we got to break some of those like those bad habits that we learned. And it's not going to be overnight. You're not going to drop 500 pounds in 5 days, but you're going to learn some habits that are going to teach you how to not be on a diet all the damn time. And so if that's something that you want to go for, do me a favor, check the link in the show notes because that is where where that's where the money is. That's where the weight loss is. That's where the maintenance is. That's where the sustainability is. So if that's what you're looking for, that's going to be your jam for 2024. Do me a favor, drop down into the show notes and grab it right now. All right, magic makers, here we are. Bring it on. We got this. Enjoy the rest of your day.